Hello everyone and welcome to Uncharted Parenting, a podcast brought to you by Encounter Youth. Parenting is one wild adventure. It's full of twists, turns and plenty of uncharted territory. But don't worry, you're not navigating it alone. We're here with you. And each episode here on the pod, we dive into some real conversations, expert insights from some amazing professionals from various fields, and honest stories to help you find your way in this parenting journey. I'm your host, Louis, the Education and Parent Coordinator at Encounter Youth. Before joining the team here, I enjoyed 9 years serving as a police officer in the South Australian Police, but most importantly, I'm the proud dad of 2 boys. Welcome to Uncharted Parenting because, let's be honest, no one really has a map for this journey. Let's dive in. All right, so welcome to another episode of Uncharted Parenting. I'm really excited for the guest that we have on Uncharted Parenting today. So he is full of energy, this particular guest, and he's doing some amazing stuff in the mental health space, not only in Victoria, but Australia-wide as well. So big warm welcome to Matt Runnalls. Thank you for joining me, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. And as I always like to say, it's nice to spend these hours and these moments with good people who understand it, but also to start good conversations. So I appreciate you doing that.
Thanks for joining us, mate. We really appreciate it. And look, Matt, we know that you're the Director of Mindful Aus, based in Victoria, we know, but I know you are nationwide, and also you're currently in the US, so you're international actually as well.
I am, mate. You've caught me overseas at the moment, which is great. So yeah, live action. We're doing some incredible work right across the country. But I'm very fortunate. This has taken me many places, and at the moment, sitting in Maryland, about to begin my 11th speaking tour of the US. So very fortunate. There's really no one that we don't want to help and support, and obviously we've got our areas of play and focus that we want to fine tune in on and focus on back at home in Australia. But there's so many people that really are sitting up and taking notice now and listening to these sorts of topics and themes and conversations, and we're happy to be a facilitator of them.
Yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile thing to be speaking about. I mean, it is big at the moment, and you and I, Matt, we're probably similar age where we grew up in this era of let's not talk about it, let's suck it up, just deal with it. But it's mental health, especially for you and I are both males, and so especially for males, I feel is definitely one of those topics that you just sort of put to the side and don't speak about. But it's really great to see that you are raising awareness about it, and also, bridging those gaps that have sort of existed in that space. So it's really great to see you doing some amazing work.
Yeah, mate. I think, for a long time that was the narrative, and I know we're coming leaps and bounds in that field in terms of how that looks and feels for a lot of people now, which is great. For whatever reason, I guess I was a little bit different. I felt a little bit ostracized and a little bit isolated in how I always felt and how I experienced my emotions and actually talked about them. And that was a foreign object to a lot of people around me for a long time. But I guess with consistency, and the more that I did it and the more that I was persistent in opening up and being vulnerable and at the time being emotional, the more people that I found that were connected to sitting in that space and discomfort with me, and the easier it was to identify who the people weren't ready for it. And that's fine, and that's their own journey. But as I said, we're creating a world at the moment that looks like there's lots of great people around us, and there is plenty of people that understand what we're experiencing with it, which is half the battle.
Yeah. I guess that leads me on to probably where I want to start today, Matt, is what was the driving force for you, mate? And how did, you really kickstart this journey to wellness, to mental health resilience? And is there something in your life that happened that really kickstarted that journey for you?
There's a lot of moments that have helped me and supported me along the way. However, I always think of the one that comes to mind all the time is, I was homeless on the street, and I was taken off the street by a lovely lady called Aurora Alexander, and she housed me in the bottom of her garage, double car garage. And I remember the times that I just sat in there and, I'd run away to Queensland and was homeless because I didn't identify and stop and navigate those big feelings and big emotions that I experienced. So the time that comes clear as day to me is the times where I used to sit in that garage by myself, and I used to just think about all of the things that I went through, and I just started to voice it. I just started to share it. I started to type it, write it. I mean, I didn't have the confidence or the strength, I suppose, to say it on stages like I'm doing now, or to have these conversations. But what I did have was, I was fortunate enough that I could hide behind a screen and I could write and type and reflect on my journey, but also then share some of it with the world. And the more that I shared and the more vulnerable and the more direct I was with being real about it, the more people that sort of seemed to, as I said, sat up and took note of it and wanted to, I guess, understand it better. And that's really where I found my first community. Was a heap of people that really, really struggled with their own emotions too. And when some young bloke just started talking about it in all of its truths, I guess I built a little bit of a community of people who felt like, shit, this is exactly what I need to see, hear, and feel. And these are the exact things that I'm going through. And then it become just natural progression from there. So I guess I was a little bit different in regards to a lot of other people. Obviously when I was younger, the narrative was always around go to the doctors, get diagnosed and get support. And I don't know, I was never a fan of that narrative. I think I was ahead of the game in some way for whatever reason, because I like that narrative. So for me, it was easy to, voice my challenges and my pain and my emotions as best as I could, because articulation was something that I wasn't great at, but it was also something that I'd never learned how to speak about. And so therefore it was hard to talk about. But the more I did it, the more I found people who wanted to listen. And as I said before, the more people I found that wanted to walk away from me as well and felt that I was too hard to be around. So while that hurt, and I couldn't sit in the comfort and confidence of it that I can now, I'm able to identify that as just people who aren't ready, and it's not their fault either. We weren't brought up talking about this stuff. So when the time's right for everyone, I'm sure that we'll have a whole country that buys into this narrative. Fortunately for a lot of people, they don't understand it because they haven't experienced it, and that's a beautiful thing, and I hope that we can keep it that way. But we have got a world that's hurting at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. The world is, like you said, is hurting a little bit at the moment, and I guess as well, there's a few things you mentioned in there, Matt, and it's a big step, mate, to go from, I'm thinking about your journey, and I'm thinking, you're in this garage. How old were you, Matt, when that happened to you?
Yeah, about 21 years of age, I was homeless. So before that, I was diagnosed well before that. So I guess I'd been speaking up, but it was where publicly, I'd started to share things from that garage. But previous to that, my mum was a pharmacist. So to be able to go and get a script and to follow that narrative was something that was really scary to me, because it meant that in a small regional town, the script that hit the pharmacy would mean that it'd end up in my mum's hands. And so I had to, if I was going to have the confidence to walk in and speak to a professional, then I had to at least have that conversation with my mother, because she was going to see the script across her desk. So, I tried to start those conversations as often as I can, but, no discredit to my family. I have a beautiful family and a family that supports me in their own way. But they weren't comfortable with these emotional conversations. And, that's a hard thing to grasp when you've got all of these big feelings and big emotions going on in your head, and you're trying to work out why they exist. And as I often say to people, for me, depression isn't when you're sad. Depression isn't when I'm having a shitty time or a life event happens. For me, it was really tough because everything in my life was going great. I had a beautiful family. I had the best of everything. I had the ability to do and be whatever I wanted to be. But yet, for some reason, I just felt heavy. And I had a real tough time of it. And I started to believe a lot of stories that were going on in my head. And it's only now at those older ages that I really understand where them stories come from. So, big advocate for people looking at those stories and those narratives and those things that we often believe, because this noggin up here of ours is a powerful tool. It's the most powerful tool in our body. When it's working for us, we can do brilliant things. But equally, when it's not working for us, it will challenge everything. And it did that for me. And when you don't have a problem as such, it's hard to find the solution. My problem was trying to understand what the hell this was. And it was a really tough time for many, many years.
Yeah, I think, Matt, one of the things that we've spoken to other guests on the podcast is about how, as parents, sometimes we're just doing the best that we know how. And I think maybe the generation of the parents of our parents, you and I are similar age, so the generation of our parents was like that, put up, shut up, don't talk about it. And they probably in turn didn't know how to have conversations with their kids about it. So I think back to, there's times, definitely not to the level that you just described when you were going through your story there, but I think back to my sort of teenage years and really thinking, like, I did struggle. I struggled with my mental health and, not liking didn't like school. School wasn't for me. Do I need to finish school? What do I do if I, all those sort of questions you ask as a teenager in your head, like how am I going to cope? How am I going to get through this? And probably as parents, our parents probably didn't know how to approach those conversations. But now, through the work that you're doing and speaking to parents and speaking to all these different sectors, is you're really raising awareness of that, and I think that's a really great thing. So thank you for sharing your story. It's a big step, mate, to go from sitting in this garage and thinking about things, and to now publicly speaking across the world about it. So how did that first step happen for you?
Consistency and discipline. Yeah, it's the two things that I put it down to. But, as always, everyone always asks me, man, how did you get to the place in which you are? And, I mentioned two of them just then, that discipline and consistency piece, but the authenticity piece, that place that I was able to step into vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of strength. And, you're on a continuum as such, and there's a precipice in the middle. There's a little balance and beam in the middle, and you can go one way or you can go the other. And I truly believe that step in the middle that leads you down the right track is definitely vulnerability. And until you're willing to sit in the discomfort and challenge yourself amongst the pain and try to understand where these thoughts, feelings, and emotions have come from, then it's a really, really hard thing to navigate. Otherwise, you can have all the skills and tools in the world about gratitude and empathy and mindfulness and exercise and all the rest. You throw that out the window, because if you don't deal with the stuff that sits beneath it, it becomes really tough. I always say it. It's just very hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. So that bottle is constricting. It feels crap, and we need to get outside of it. And in order to get outside of it, we have to play in that vulnerability space. We have to be willing to put our hand up and go, you know what? As my book's reference, nobody can save me. The thing is, I'll save myself. I have all the skills, tools, and understandings to navigate that. And I believe that for anybody in the world. You can have all the best of supports around you outside of that bottle, but until you get outside the bottle and ask for it, until you get out of the bottle and read the label and the directions, it's going to be tough, and that bottle's always going to feel constricting. So as I always reference, people need to step outside that bottle and read the label and jump back in it and navigate it. And that's a really, really hard thing to do. I don't say that lightly. It took me many, many years, but hopefully by doing the work that we're doing, we're trying to provide people a better understanding of, you don't have to take as long as I did. You don't have to navigate all the challenges first and then come back to this last. You can play in this space first. And there is, like I said, a beautiful community of people out there willing to listen and willing to understand it. That makes that jump outside the bottle a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, it's a tough little step. But, discipline, consistency, and authenticity. I was disciplined in my self-care approach and my holistic practices, but also my strength-based approach to mental health and wellness. One of my first tours in 2016 in America, I was gifted a book from stage at the bottom of Kansas University in the green room from a bloke who gifted me a book, and I wasn't a reader of books, so he gifted me this book, and I was very grateful at the time. But I got back to St Kilda, where I lived in Victoria, and I was just sitting on my bed one day in despair, really, and this book was just sort of lit up at me, and I'm like, shit, I should probably have a look at read this book. He gifted it to me. He probably meant something by it. And it just so happened that I opened that book, and in the inside of the cover was the fact that he believes that he put this book in the right hands. And that was enough for me, in those words, to go and read a book, the first book that I read back to front, and developed my own strength-based approach to mental health. And that's how I play ball. I play in my strengths, acknowledge them, triple down at them, and I acknowledge my weaknesses, and I outsource them. And I think that that's a really important step for a lot of people too. Like you said before about parents and the work that we're doing at the moment in the child development space is to just put your hand up and go, you know what, I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's okay. We weren't taught this stuff. I wasn't taught this stuff either, and we have to look really hard for it. But putting up our hand and acknowledging that allows people to step in and play a role. And that's where we play a role in their weaknesses. We play a role in providing strategies, tools, and techniques the same way many people around the world have done that for me. And, the blessed part about the journey that I'm on is I get to go around the world every day and meet people who provide me new skills and tools. And that's the essence of what we want to do. A lot of people always say, we never got a book for this, we never got a reference for this, it's the same as parenting, we never got a manual for this. But in a lot of the ways, good, great. I'm glad we didn't, because it wouldn't have worked for me, and it wouldn't have worked for a lot of other people, because we're all different. We all need different things. But as I said, if we walk back along that timeline and find the sore points and dig them out, as I say, pull those weeds out and replace them with flowers, then we don't have to walk around with shoes on anymore. So That's how the journey's been. It's been consistency, authenticity, step by step. There's ups and downs, and it's not linear, and we know that, but every single day we're just searching for new tools and techniques that we can put in our arsenal, and the ones that don't work we can give to others that might work for them.
Yeah, some really great stuff. I really loved your analogy that you mentioned there about being in the bottle and not being able to read the label and from inside the bottle, but it's only when you actually jump outside of that when you can actually read it clearly, see things a bit clearly. That's a really great analogy. I like that one, Matt. And I guess when you continued on this journey, I guess so we know that you're the director, you're the founder of Mindful Aus. So how did that come about? Obviously, that's another part of that journey of authenticity, of that discipline and that process. So how did all that sort of kick off, Matt?
Yeah, I was a plumber, mate. Dropped out of school, didn't want to bar at school, used to just get kicked out of class every single day, and that's where a lot of my problems started with the way in which educators showed up. That's why I'm passionate about it. I love the work that educators do, and I'm very appreciative of how hard the responsibilities are of an educator this day and age. It's a lot harder than it's ever been. There's a lot more responsibility on them. So by no means is my story a reflection of poor teachers, but I feel like I had great teachers of content that wasn't relatable to me, but I didn't have a lot of great teachers who had the ability or social awareness or emotional literacy to understand the kids in front of them. And therefore I was, always booted out of the classroom. And I'm not a huge fan of booting kids out of the classroom because the same things or everything that the human being's fundamentally wired for does not belong out in the corridor. It belongs in the classroom. Love, belonging, connection. People just want to be heard and seen and loved and all of those beautiful things. And it doesn't matter how many people stroll past you in the corridor when you're kicked out as the naughty kid, you don't find love, seen, heard and valued out there. And I started to believe those narratives about myself that weren't true. That's where a lot of it stemmed from, and you sit out there in your own head and start to believe those narratives and stories that had been pushed upon you, like you'll never amount to anything, everyone's better off with you out of the classroom, all of these sorts of things. And they played a big part of me, and I dropped out of school. I was like, what's the point of being here and doing this? I really wanted to work in the zoos with animals, mate, but I couldn't sit still in the classroom. So I was never, unless there's a backdoor entry, I don't think I'll ever end up there. But I was dropped out of school like most kids do, or most boys do, I should say, and I took up a plumbing apprenticeship. And as I always said, I had no interest in being a plumber, mate. I just wanted to find somewhere where I belonged in this world. And I thought that maybe entering the real world and getting paid and having some responsibility and some independence might be that. And unfortunately, I was met with some horrible bosses. The lack of emotional awareness for what people experience and the way in which they talk to people or talk down at people and treat people was one thing, and then the physical abuse was another. So from plumbing, I did my plumbing apprenticeship and I struggled my way through that as a promise that I fulfilled to my father. But it was during plumbing that I used to just have those bite your mouth guard sort of moments and bite down on your tongue moments where you're like, what am I doing? And this isn't fulfilling me. While I was a pretty handy plumber, I definitely wasn't. It wasn't doing anything for me. But what was consistently on my mind every single day as I'd listen to music and listen to lyrics and connect to a lot of lyrics was like, how could I use some of my experiences to help and support someone else? And at the time, nobody was doing this work. Like nobody was doing it the way it's being done at the moment. Professional services, of course, have been there, but there was no lived experience advocacy. It wasn't even a thing. And what I did is I seen an advert in the paper for a bloke that was doing a fundraiser, and I thought, oh, that's my way. Go and joining me. I can run. I don't talk about this stuff, but I can run. So I went and joined the fundraiser, and I found my voice, and I became passionate about this space, and volunteered at many charities, and charity after charity kept telling me, Matt, we don't talk about suicide here. We don't reference suicide. You don't say that word. And I was like, righto. And I was respectful of that, but I always thought this is how it needs to be done. And they're not doing it. And this is very black and white for me. It was very clear what the world needed to see, hear, and feel, and we weren't doing it. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it myself. And I started Mindful Aus at the age of 24. We're a not-for-profit charity. I'm registered with the ACNC, and here we are. We're still doing it, but one of the largest providers of mental health education across the country, certainly in Victoria, of in-person content. And I'm very proud of what we do, but much to my demise, I'm never content with what we're doing. I think there's so much more that can be done, and I know that we're on that path at the moment. So just trying to wrap our arms around the community as big as we can, and continue to support them in what they need rather than what we believe they need. And I think that that's something that we've always struggled in as well in the mental health space is creating these off-the-shelf programs and things that cookie-cutter approaches that don't work. We're very big at Mindful Aus on connecting with our people and understanding what they need to see, hear, and feel, and we create it for them. So a part of that allows me to be creative, which is a big part of who I am, and a big part of it allows me to connect with my community, which is what I said to my board of directors when I first started. If you ever feel like I'm disconnected from why I started or the people that I'm doing this for, then get rid of me. And here we are. We're still going.
Yeah. Well, it's testament to yourself, Matt, that I'm thinking back to when I was 24 and starting a company, it was definitely not on my list of things to do. So I take my hat off to you, and you are doing, and your team are doing some incredible work. Australia-wide.
Told me to stop it though, mate. I wish there was someone who told me that the charity game didn't look like it does. It's I could have had some better advice in those moments of time. Maybe I'd be doing something in the space, but running the charity's definitely been tough work. But as I said, it's very rewarding, and I meet the most beautiful people every single day. I'm fortunate enough to step in a different environment.
Yeah, it is certainly rewarding work, and here in Encanny, we're a bit similar in the way we run. We're a not-for-profit charity that, we're not in the mental health space, but we're delivering, alcohol and other drug education in schools across South Australia and some interstate as well. But sort of what I want to touch on there as well, Matt, is I know you speak to school students and you also speak to parents as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do a lot of work in the adult space, parents, educators, sporting clubs, workplaces, you name it. But the work that we do at Mindful Aus is largely built around our baby, which is Healthier Hearts and Lighter Minds, which is our social emotional learning program. It's an evidence-based, really effective program that helps the kids to better understand their emotions based off the film Inside Out. And it's into phase 4 at the moment, so it means it goes for 4 years, the program. And has curriculum to go with it and a plethora of resources. So that wraps their arms around the kids and creates that new wave of young champions coming through with a better understanding that me and you probably didn't have and wish we did have. And then what we support everyone else around the kids, which I think is important and imperative. So we work with teachers to do PD days. We do parenting seminars that are tailored to suit. We have some of the best parenting experts and child development experts in this country delivering on those. And then we do a lot of work in the sporting clubs and the workplaces to make sure that we're wrapping our arms around absolutely everyone as possible and creating that new dialogue and new narrative around changing the way that mind and behavioural health is both perceived and treated. And I know that if we continue to do that, mate, I think we're already seeing the impacts of what that looks and feels like. But every conversation is an opportunity to give someone a skill they might not have had. And like you said earlier, you're only as good as the information you've got in the moments you need it. And we're just trying to put it in the hands of people who might need it or hopefully never need it, but glad to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said, Matt, for that evidence-based holistic approach to education. I think that's the best. That's certainly what we found is the best way to do it. Speaking to the next generation that are going through school right now, but also educating, parents. I mean, I'm a parent myself, father to 2 boys, and I certainly want to teach myself how to have these conversations with my kids when they're a little bit older, to have that emotional intelligence, and really, so it's great work that you're doing, and it's amazing to see the impact that it's having as well across your community and far and wide.
The parenting space is where I love playing at the moment. I think it's a very beautiful space, and parents are often really, really tough on themselves for the job they're doing, and obviously it's very, very tough to navigate big feelings and big emotions of someone that often reflects a mirror back at us. But like I said, parenting ourselves first and doing that work on ourselves models the right behaviour for these young kids to come through and know that that's possible for them as well. And I think that that's where a lot of us around my age group and older never got to see that. I don't think, self-care or mental health and wellbeing was something that was ever spoken about. Therefore, it was just head down, bum up, keep going forward until we changed that. And we've definitely changed that narrative. And I think more people are taking onus for role modelling the right behaviour for these fantastic little imitators, which are little sponges, which are our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely are sponges. And I just quickly, you mentioned how it's based off the movie Inside Out. That's a fantastic movie. They're both the one and the first one and the second one. Whoever created those movies were visionaries, in my opinion. The way that they describe stuff is incredible.
Absolutely, mate. There's a lot of science that goes into those movies now. Disney and Pixar, and I'm very familiar with them. I had the copyrights of the film for a long time in order to build the program. That Disney and Pixar put a lot of effort into the psychology of their films. There's a lot of hidden messages in their films. There's a lot of things that it's not a director that's wrote a script and thought, you know what, this is how I experienced it. There's evidence behind everything that they do, down to the colors of the emotions that are in Inside Out, how they dress, how they look, how they feel, how they sound, how they talk. And it was a brilliant film. It's built by, I think there was over 12 or 13 world's best psychologists and psychiatrists worked on the film Inside Out. So it's a brilliant resource for parents out there and for teachers out there, but also for kids to better understand their emotions and that control panel they've got up there in their mind that they can drive at any time in the right direction. But also acknowledging that sometimes we drive it in the wrong direction, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And it's interesting what I found from 1 to 2. I'm trying not to give too much away in case there's listeners that haven't watched it yet. So it's interesting that
now, mate, give it away.
It's interesting to see the different steps from the first movie to the second movie, and how much bigger the control panel gets, and the different emotions that come in and try and take over our brains. It is a really good. It paints a really good picture of what actually goes on up in our heads, I think, and
it does, and that's the importance of this thing. I mean, we look at from number 1 to number 2, and the importance of the 6 core emotions, and then obviously we add another 4 in Inside Out 2. Yeah, there's over 200 plus emotions that we experience. Imagine that control panel and what that looks and feels like, and that's an overwhelming process. But imagine how overwhelming that is if you don't understand any of them, and that's essentially what the world's been doing for a very long time. So Inside Out nailed it when they wanted to create a narrative around our big feelings and big emotions, and helping kids, parents, teachers, and the likes better understand that all of them are beautiful. None of them should be suppressed and ignored, and we need to feel them and we need to experience them. And every single emotion that we have is an action signal that something in our life may need to change. And that's what we have to stop and be present to, that those fleeting thoughts or feelings or these tantrums are action signals that something is going wrong. And we have, in that moment, we have the opportunity to navigate it in a positive way.
Yeah, so true.
Might I add, I don't always get that right myself. In fact,
no, we're human. We're never going to get everything right, and I certainly don't get things right in my parenting journey as well. So I'm still learning and still growing in that space. So there's parents out there far and wide, I think, are doing as best as they possibly can do, and things like yourself, the education that you do, Matt, is great for parents, I think, to jump onto to try and better themselves in this space. So you just quickly, Matt, you're big on wellness. So you're big on your own wellness and your own wellness journey. But you mentioned, I know that you're pretty keen on a few different things. You're big into your boxing and your running and meditation and things like that. And a couple of things that I've heard you mention before this podcast, and we've spoken before the pod, but what you mentioned 1,440 minutes in every day, and we all know there's 24 hours in every day, but why 1,440 minutes? Why is that such a key thing for you?
I think for a few reasons. Subconsciously I've shared that narrative for a very long time, and a lot of people pick up on it because it is different. But for me, I feel like the most important part was breaking it down. Firstly, I looked at 1,440 minutes as how many opportunities I had every single day to help someone. And then when I realized that I had 1,440 opportunities, 1,440 minutes in a day, I had all of those minutes in a day, which meant that I had so much time, because everyone's time poor. Everyone can't do it for everyone's busy. I hear it every single conversation I have. Everyone's busy. But
I think I said it to you before we started the pod tonight, mate. I think I said exactly the same thing to you.
I didn't pick up what I said from Steve. Yeah. But I hear everyone say it, right? And if I'm present to it, busy is a word used by people, I reckon, who don't know how to prioritize their time for things that really matter. And that's not a negative or a criticism. That's just that moment of, oh shit, I've been doing that, and I need to stop and be reflective of why I'm busy. Because with 24 hours, Matt goes down the street and has coffee with Jimmy, and then my coffee goes for 45 minutes, but I've scrapped that hour. I've scrapped it. Yeah, there's 15 minutes in there I could have done something with. So the process of my wellness plan when I was at the very bottom was making sure I made the most of every single minute that I had in front of me. I was coming from a long way back. I had multiple suicide attempts. I was homeless, ran away from home, lost 12 mates to mind and behavioural health challenges. Yeah, I've been through quite a bit, and I felt like I wasted a lot of my life. And I just broke it down into minutes, and minutes helped me understand just how much I had. And I think that narrative has also helped some other people identify that they're not busy. What they are doing is wasting a lot of time on things that don't matter. And the most important thing that matters in this journey is us. And we have to be selfish in that, because essentially if we're filling that cup up and doing the best we can with all of those minutes, then one, we're going to role model it to these beautiful young champions that are in our care as parents. But secondly, we're going to role model it to the people around us, and people are either going to have a choice whether they lift up and raise their life standards with us or they stay stuck. And I think if more of us are using those minutes productively, then people look around and go, shit, I don't want to get left behind. So I think it's also a good narrative that way. And as I said, it just helps me to better understand my capacity each and every single day to get stuff done. And as I said, it started out with just the fleeting thought that, I'd lost 12 mates to suicide. I was sick of sitting up the back of funerals, and I have 1,540 minutes starting right now or starting tomorrow, whenever I want to start it, to go and make a difference. And so I had time, and every conversation, the conversation that led me off the street to the home, to safety and comfort, was 60 seconds. So every 60 seconds around the world, we're losing somebody. More importantly to me, every 60 seconds we have the opportunity to stop that by having these meaningful conversations with people that we care about. And so, as I said, I would make small tasks and games with myself that before I jump in the car, before I touch my door handle on my car of a morning, I had to send 5 text messages. And I knew that 5 text messages would take me no longer than 2-3 minutes. And 2-3 minutes before I jumped in my car, I knew that I was reaching out to the people I cared about every single day and asking them, what it felt like to be them, and asking them how their day was, or checking in on them, or finding out what they're up to, or reconnecting. I'd make little games with myself all the time, but I just don't feel like you can do that when you look at the day like 24 hours. You wipe out 12 of those hours, or you wipe out 8 or 10 of them for work. You wipe out another 8 or 10 for sleep. You don't have many left. But when you break it down to minutes, you got 400 to 600 minutes left in the day. So I got plenty of time to do stuff for me.
Yeah, certainly a unique way of looking at it, and I think also a really good way to look at it. And you're 100% right. Before you even said it, I was just about to say, it takes 30 seconds to write a text message and to check in, and even if it's just "G'day, mate, how you going?" or something simple. It might not even be expecting a response as well. It's just knowing that you're still reaching out to that person and checking in with them, and giving them the space. If they want to respond, then you're there to listen to them and be there for them.
As I said, those small little games I was playing with myself, like I still do it. I know a song goes on average for about 3.5 to 4.5 minutes. I know, all right, in the time that this song goes, I'm going to flick off a few messages, or I'm going to do whatever, a cold shower or whatever it needs to do. It just makes things a bit simpler. It's like asking a kid, hey, I want you to go clean your room. The kid's going to say no. That's what it's like when you're like, oh, I've only got an hour after work to do things. It's like, no, you don't. You've got 60 minutes, 60 opportunities. But if you said to the kid, hey, mate, I want you to go pick up 10 blocks, the kid will do it. You race to go pick up 10 blocks. So if you break down and chuck these things, it makes it simple for people to achieve. I'd still do the same thing. I mean, I got up this morning at 5 a.m. on the other side of the world, and I'm like, you know what? I got 26 minutes. I got time to exercise. 26 minutes of rigorous exercise is all the body needs a day to release dopamine and release everything that we need. Therefore, it's like, oh crap, I don't have an hour. I don't have enough time to go to the gym. It's like, no, I got 26 minutes, and that's all it takes. I know I'm going to get the same benefits in 26 minutes as I do in an hour. So let's do it. Yeah,
it's a great way to look at it, and I think I might be adopting that similar strategy from here on out, Matt. So thank you for enlightening that. And I hope these 44 minutes that we've been speaking has been 44 minutes worth of that time as well. So you've been really generous with that time that you've given us today, Matt. And before I'll let you go, I know I'm hesitant to use the word busy now. So
I'm productive.
I know you're that's probably a better way to do it. Let's say that. So yeah, I know you are being very productive while you're over there in the US. But before you go, I just want to ask you about your book. Nobody Can Save Me. It's really, I haven't had the opportunity to read it myself just yet, but I've heard lots and lots of amazing things about it, and I will certainly be buying it from here on out. But it's an amazing book about your journey, and like we've spoken a little bit about today. And can you maybe just give our listeners a little bit of an insight into that for us, Matt?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things with it. Obviously, the title is contradicting or makes people go, what the hell is he talking about? Nobody Can Save Me gets people to sit up and take notice, and that's what I wanted them to do by reading the title. There's this narrative that people are like, oh, it is what it is. I live with this. I live with that. I can't. I did the same things. There's that narrative that I knew that people would read my book and go, see, like I told you, that this is what it is for me. I'm never going to get better. He agrees with me. Nobody can save me. And then they'd read my book and better understand that you can, because the narrative around nobody can save me is that nobody else can do that for me. It's only me. I'm the only person that can do that. As I said, referred inside out, I'm the one in control of that control panel. And it's nice to have all the beautiful people around you helping you along the way, but really I'm the only one that can push the buttons. So nobody can save me is that dialogue that it's on me and I've got to do the work. And I hope that through people reading the book, which is flooded with my own personal stories, but also a plethora of strategies and techniques along the journey throughout that book that will help people to navigate those tricky feelings the same way that I have. And there's lots of things in there that I use and there's lots of things in there that I don't, but I still think are worth mentioning around habit loops and behaviors and choices and, cold exposure and whatever it is. I've provided everything that I wanted. And the idea of writing the book during COVID when the publishers, I was in talks with a lot of publishers, was around my autobiography, and that really didn't sit well with me. I wanted it to be more than that. And the book's broken up into 4 parts, and part 1 and 2 are a lot of story with some tools and techniques and some understanding around, bipolar and different things like that I live with. And then part 3 is hugely around the strategies, tools, and how I navigate them, which is what I call my blueprint to wellness. And then part 4, I look at my rules for emotional literacy, and these are the things that I live by every single day that help me to, I guess, be here and have this conversation. So, yeah, the book was never for anything of significance. What it was is just a piece of contribution. I feel like I'm going around the world getting in front of masses of people every single day, and I wanted to walk away from every speaking gig making sure that they had something. And that book was the easiest way to navigate that. So, yeah, often my inbox is flooded after a speaking gig, and now it doesn't seem to be, which means that people are actually buying the book and reading it and taking it in rather than asking me my tips, tools, and strategies, which works for both of us. So I'm blessed that it's out there and doing the rounds and somehow still selling and people are interested in it. So it's just my way of helping me.
Yeah, and it sounds like an amazing read, and thank you for taking us through some of that journey today here on the podcast. And for those listeners that maybe want to grab Matt's book, Nobody Can Save Me, I'll leave a link in the episode description as well to that book. But in addition to that, how you're helping with your book, Matt, you're also going to be connecting with parent audiences across Australia through the Raising Resilient Kids Conference this year as a keynote speaker. So are you excited about that?
Mate, I am for probably a very unique reason. I'm probably on the way out in terms of speaking and facilitating content. I've done it for a very long time, and I've been trained speakers now to take that baton off me, I guess, and get some more beautiful voices out there doing this amazing work. But for me, when this opportunity came up and Michelle Mitchell contacted me, I was excited purely because I feel like it's the first conference that's taken into consideration the voice of the kid. I'm a big fan of Resilient Kids Conference before I got asked, and I'd attended before, and I love that they've got so many child development, anxiety, and parenting experts. But for me, the fact that they reached in and identified that, we need the voice of a kid. We need someone who does it differently. And I'm not a parent. I've been a stepfather in a past relationship, and I experienced what other people get to experience for 2 years there. But for me, I don't try to pretend I'm something I'm not. I have a great understanding for parenting because I've done a lot of research and a lot of work in this space. However, I come from the perspective of the kid, and I'll be talking about that, but also talking about neurodiversity, which is really, really exciting as well, because I feel like it's a hot topic at the moment, but it's also something that people aren't very familiar with. And given my experiences with bipolar disorder, I feel like I'm very qualified to speak about neurodiversity and put all my neurodiversity friends on my back and make them proud.
Yeah. No, it's. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes for you. And Michelle. For those that haven't listened, Michelle was on a previous episode of this podcast. She's a wonderful speaker, author as well. She's got some amazing books out there too. And looking forward to seeing how that goes for you, Matt, this year. And it is a great conference. My wife has been to a couple of them, and they're fantastic conferences for parents to attend and really get some insight from some amazing professionals just like yourself in that space. And you're right, that neurodivergent space hasn't been spoken about a lot, and there's lots of professionals just like yourself that are very qualified to talk about it and also doing some amazing work in that space. Matt, I just want to thank you for your time. You are an incredible advocate for mental health and mental health resilience and wellness, and it's actually a joy to speak to you today. You got so much energy, mate, and it's I was actually really looking forward to this one today, and it's great to have a chat to you, and thank you for dedicating your time whilst you're over there in the US to us over here back in Australia. So we really appreciate it, and I just want to lead by saying that you've navigated in your journey, Matt. You've navigated lots of uncharted territory, lots of difficult moments, and you're doing some amazing work now through Mindful Aus, and you've been doing some amazing work for a long time. And I'm sorry that it's taken this long for me to have a chat to you about it. So we wish you all the best while you're over there in the US, and we wish you the best for not only the Resilient Kids Conference this year, but also just in the work you do from day to day. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you. There's just so many good people in this country doing good work, and fortunately for me, I'm traveling the world, getting to see what other countries do and bringing some of it back. But largely, I think if I'm being really honest and transparent, Australia's got the best advocates in the world, and it's people like you that are allowing more people to have access to them. And I think that that's really good. You look at Resilience Kid Conference, your Karen Youngs, your Lael Stones, your Justin Coulsons, your Michelle Mitchells. We've got the best people in this country, and Maggie Dents, and we need more parents to understand that and to access them and to, do their courses, read their stuff, do their trainings, arm yourself with these skills so that you're better prepared to deal with the situations that you might come in contact with, or at best result, hope that you never come in contact with them, but you have this awesome skill that you can share with someone else there forward. So, I'm very blessed to be a part of it all, playing my small part in how it all looks and feels and learning from the best. And as I said, I'm grateful to you, mate, for starting these conversations and having great people on that allow parents and people out there in the community who are listening and proactive about this stuff to get access to what they need. So, if I can ever be of help and support to anyone, including yourself, mate, I'm here for it. You got a friend in me.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Uncharted Parenting. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. We'd love to hear from all of our listeners. So if you have any questions that you would like us to answer here on the podcast, we want to hear directly from you. Send those questions in to us and we will be answering them right here on the pod. Please send them in to inquiry@encounteryouth.com.au. That's inquiry@encounteryouth.com.au. Remember, wherever you listen to your podcast, give us a follow, subscribe, send us a review, send in those questions by the bucket load, and remember, there is no map for parenting. You enter uncharted waters every single day, but there is a way forward. You're doing an amazing job already, and we're with you on that journey. We have some more amazing episodes coming your way very soon, but until next time, goodbye for now.